Some people chase success across borders. Others bring it home and rebuild it from the ground up. Today's guest is Dr. Rahul Singh, a global business leader, an entrepreneur at heart, and someone who chose responsibility over comfort. After an MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur and a 15-year-long career across consulting, banking, and e-commerce in New York, Rahul did something most people only talk about. He walked away. In 2020, he left behind a high paying US career to return to India and build EcoSoul Home, a company rooted in sustainability, rural empowerment, and the belief that business must serve generations it'll never meet. Inspired by the idea that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children, EcoSoul produces eco friendly, food grade family essentials made from palm leaves, bamboo pulp, and virgin fibers with zero chemical compromise. Today, EcoSoul exports to over 10 countries, works with 150 manufacturers, employs nearly 100 people, and a majority women, and has crossed a turnover of 600 crore, all while building trust when none existed before. But this episode isn't just about scale, it's about what it means to leave certainty, to build through loss, to persist when sustainability sounds beautiful in theory but brutally hard in practice. This is Unapologetic Me, and today I'm in conversation with Dr. Rahul Singh. Rahul, I'm just going to say I'm extremely thrilled to record this conversation, and I'm super happy that we finally got the time on your calendar.
So, Ekta, thank you so much for having me on your show, right? And essentially, it was my pleasure, by the way, to be here. I've seen some of the inspiring podcasts that you have done with other founders. And I really believe that, looking at the work that you are doing with the founders, it's very inspiring. And I think it's our way of giving back to the society. When we started our businesses, right, a lot of founders came together and helped us out. They really taught us what it means to be a founder, how to handle stress, work-life balance, how to run a supply chain, how to do marketing. So there is so much help we got from the ecosystem. And I think hopefully through this conversation, we are able to help some founders. We are able to inspire some founders to be founders, right? And that would be my pleasure to share my story with you. Having said that, I I don't talk want to talk about the guy who was there for 15 years in the US and did pretty well and came back and started factories. I really want to talk about the guy, right? A little kid who was born in a remote town in Chhattisgarh. Okay, didn't had any family backing in terms of business or any knowledge. Went to Kendriya Vidyalaya, right? Because I think that's the real power of India, right? That when we work hard and we dream hard, right? Our education system, our culture, our ethos really sets us up not only for success in this country, but also success in global settings, right? So essentially, I think that's the story that really I tell myself again and again, right? The story of the roots. And coming back to the roots was always what I wanted. So I'm here today and very, very happy to talk to you.
Let's go. On that note, let's begin. I'm going to start by peeling the layers on the life that looked perfect. You had what many would call a dream life in the US: senior roles, financial security, global exposure. Question is, what didn't that life give you?
So I think it's a question of your personal ambition and also a question of your sense of responsibility and give back, right? So just to tell your audience, right? I was a banker in the US for 15 years, right? Rose all the way to like CEO of commercial banking of KeyBank, right? Was an executive director in JPMorgan, managing director in Citigroup. Uh, I left banking at the age of 35. And the reason I left banking was I always thought that banking is not innovative enough. Okay, so I should go and work in an industry which is at the forefront of innovation. And I hence became the head of global supply chain for Wayfair. And that was my transition to e-commerce industry. So I'm always one person who always looks for, are we really adding value, not only to ourselves, right? Career path is one thing, but are we really adding value to how the future economy or the future, uh, let's just say the next revolution will shape up, right? During my tenure at Wayfair, we really thought that, hey, there is so much goods are getting sold at e-commerce, right?
Mhm.
There is so much impact that we are creating from a carbon footprint perspective, right? What can we do from a sustainability perspective? So my initial research was more around sustainability within e-commerce. And with that, I discovered that, hey, there is a category which is the second largest CPG category in the world, it's $200 billion a year, which is hated by the customers, hated by the regulators, and hated by the governments, and that's called single-use plastics.
Mhm.
Why do these exist? If nobody will raise their hand, and I'm sure, I can ask you that question. Do you ever want to consume single-use plastic?
Definitely not.
I'll tell you, if I ask that question to 100 people, I'll get 100 out of 100 answers like, I don't like single-use plastic. I
Yeah.
ask 100 governments, they will say the same thing. I ask 100 regulators, they will say the same thing. It still exists, $200 billion a year. So my fundamental question was that there is a product that nobody likes, but everybody consumes. What is the reason for that? And is there something that I can do to change that? And I think that really inspired me to really work towards a more sustainable option. And this is my story, and would love to talk more about that. Answer your first question, right? It's like the picture perfect life. Okay.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. When I was growing up, right, as a Kendriya Vidyalaya kid, right, it was a dream to go to US,
Hmm.
right? And I think that was our, and I think about the generation that was born in the 80s, right? Your path to what I would say financial security, your path to success, your path to what I would say a really global career was essentially you leave India and you go back, you go to different countries, you go to London, you go to New York, you go to Australia, right? You find your what I would say, you find your passion outside of India. And that was a reality of our generation. It was not like, hey, we wanted to do this, we didn't want to do this. It was just the reality of the generation. There were very limited opportunities in India. So I did pursue that path, right? Where I basically sought a good education, use that education to go and build my global career. And I'll have to say that there is a lot that I learned from being in the US, from being in the UK and other places, right? So that's true, right? But there comes a point in time in life where you have learned a lot. Okay, you have built some level of financial security. You think that, you understand how the global markets work, how the global ecosystems work. And this is the time where you really start questioning, right? And I started questioning is, okay, I've learned all of that, but what am I doing for my country? Okay.
Hmm.
And I know it sounds very cliche. It sounds like Swades movie kind of
But then why not,
moment.
right? It's a good feeling. Not many get that feeling, but it's a good realization.
Yeah, and that was a time, when our kids were growing up, right? And we understood, right? The single-use plastics, everyone hates it, right? And I was talking to my wife, and we were like, hey, we have built everything, but what are we leaving for them, right? What are we leaving in terms of legacy for them, right? What are we doing in terms of giving back to our homeland that really, gave everything to us, right? So we had these some of these questions in our mind, right? And we really wanted to build something, right? Which is, of course, becomes a benchmark for sustainability in this world. But can we do something that while building this business, okay, we can benefit our country? Okay.
Hmm.
And essentially just putting it all together, right? And I know this, all of this was just a dream, right? And you call it like, the God's grace, or things fall into place, right? But things kept falling in place, and we were able to build this business, right? So we never expected it to go that big, but I think when we actually go on a good karma mission, right, even God helps you, right? So I think that's where we landed up.
Perfect. And I'm sure it's only the way is up only. It's going to scale up like in good numbers. And the next time I'll be recording you, I'll have a bigger number in terms of revenue to quote. Well,
I, I do hope so. Absolutely. We have a responsibility towards our employees, our shareholders to make that happen.
yeah. And like you said, when everything is moving in the right direction with a good karma, with a good intent, things start forming up and shaping up in the right direction. Moving on. We spoke about family, right? You have two amazing kids. Let's touch upon a personal family moment that became a turning point for you. How did responsibility and not ambition begin to shape your decision then? You spoke about leaving or creating a land for your kids, which is without the plastics. But how did that kind of created that folder as an ambition for you to uproot everything and then set the pace here?
I think there were two moments in life, right? So the first moment was, right, my son was born preemie, right? He was born in the seventh month. And when he was born, right, I was a typical New York banker, okay? Like
Mhm.
working 80 hours a week, right? Traveling all the time, yada, 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 right? And I still remember when, like, because we were not expecting him, I was traveling. My wife called me and she said, like, she might deliver. And I was like, oh, but it's not the time yet. But she said, but it's happening. And I know I took the next flight. And the entire time I was on the airport, I was discussing with the doctors, and they were not sure whether my son will survive or not.
Oh my God.
Okay. That day, like, I think that was the first time I realized, right, oh my God, this is family, right? Because when you're just a couple, right, you're having your careers and you go around, right, and essentially, you're on your path to ambition. That was probably the first time where I took a pause. I remember right from the airport, I called my leaders and said, I'm out for a month. There is no transition. There is nothing. I'm out for a month. This is the time where I have to prioritize my family over everything else. I have to be with my wife, and this is it. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's very rare you say that in a New York banking environment,
You
right?
can't.
So it's actually hard to say in any environment, by the way,
Yeah.
whether you work for a large corporation or a startup, right? But I think that moment made me realize family matters,
Mm.
right? And there is a point in time where you should just pause everything and understand, right? There is life beyond you with your dreams and your career. That was, I think, the first moment where I realized how to take a pause and really understand what's going around you, which is beyond, like, the materialistic things. The second time it happened was essentially, again, I was in the US, right? And I heard the news that dad suffered a heart attack. Okay. And I was living in the US, my brother was living in Malaysia, and there was no one here.
Oh my God. Mm.
And that was the second time I realized that your parents are not forever. Like, we take so many things for granted. We take our kids for granted. We take our parents for granted. And thankfully, dad survived, right? And everything became okay, right? He's hardy, is healthy today, right? But I could not get back here to India when my mom and dad really needed me, right? So I think these were the couple of things that make you realize, right? That and this is where you realize that there is family, there is an ecosystem around you. I know that when my parents were in the need, all our relatives, my mausis, my buas, my chacha, everyone rushed to help them out. And this is also where you realize how alone you are when you're in the US, and how much
Yeah.
family and the family bonds and everything matters. So I think those were some of the inflection points that really made us think, right, beyond ourselves and beyond our selfish selves, right? And that really shaped up a lot of decisions we took from there on, right? We really thought that, hey, uh, corporate rat race can carry on forever. Okay,
Mm.
there's no end to it. Okay, your your homeland matters, your parent matters. They are not forever. And is there something that we can do really to go back to the roots, right? So those are some of the main inflection points in life which really made us think.
These are such good points that you've shared, but I'm going to ask you now that you look back when you came and the decision, do you feel like was returning to India an emotional decision, a strategic one, or something else entirely? What do you
I
feel at this point?
That's a good point, right? I think it's a combination of both, right? So yes, okay. The country you're born in, where your parents are, where your roots are, you'll always be emotionally attached to that country,
Yeah.
right? And I'm a big lover of Indian culture, Indian food, Indian everything, right? So essentially, so I think so of course we are very emotionally attached
Yeah.
to our homeland, right? The question also became is, okay. And again, right, think about a Swadesh moment. You come back to India, what do you do? Okay, you can't just come back to India and do nothing, and because you're still very early in your life. I was 37-year-old when I came back to India, right? So the question then also became is, hey, I was thinking about sustainability. I was thinking about picking up a war against plastic. I was thinking about, hey, can we strategically replace a product that everybody hates, and can India become the source of that product?
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I think that was one of the best strategic decisions we took, because thinking about it, right, India is a very sustainable country. Like, so think about when I was growing up in the 80s, right? We didn't have plastic bottles, we didn't have polythenes and all of that, right? I still remember, like, we used to have the thela, right? We used to have that carry bag
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we made out of like old curtains sometimes and old chadar sometimes, right?
yeah.
And we used to, like, fill water in water bottle. I remember Milton water bottles and cello water bottle. There was no single use plastic bottles. We used to carry water from home. We were very sustainable. I think in the 90s and the early 2000s, where we lost the way and we got into single use plastic. But if you think about the jute industry, the palm leaf industry, the bamboo industry, the bagasse industry, all of these industries always existed in India, and we were extremely sustainable. And and what I started realizing after coming back to India is that this could become the source of sustainable product for the entire world, not only for our own country. So I think that was more of a strategic decision, right? So I will say the first trigger was emotional, but so what got us here was emotional. What kept us here was more strategic.
Perfectly answered. One line says it all. All right. Now let's talk about the leap and the risk. When you first envisioned EcoSoul, what problem were you trying to solve? Environmental, economic, or personal? We spoke about plastics, but what was the bigger picture you had in mind at that time?
So the bigger picture I had in mind is essentially the entire global market, right, is up for disruption in this category,
Yeah.
right? And it started like, I started surveying some of the US stores, right, and the European stores and all of that. And I was like, I go aisle after aisle, it is filled with single-use plastic, right? So we started talking to some of the category managers over there, and we said, hey, why you are buying plastic? Why are you not giving eco-friendly options to your customers? And they were like, oh, by the way, we don't know enough about eco-friendly, right? We don't know how to, like, the category doesn't exist. We don't know who the suppliers are going to be, yada yada yada. And then we started understanding what is really the impediment to the growth of sustainable products in the world. And we got it down to 4 A's, by the way. Ex-consultant, so we always think in frameworks, right?
It'll
So we
come
got
in
it.
the conversation somewhere.
So 4 A's, right? So awareness, accessibility,
Hmm.
affordability, which drives adoption. Okay.
Okay.
So basically, the first is awareness. Okay. The awareness, not only in terms of consumers, but also awareness for the category managers and, the big retailers, the Walmarts and the Targets and the Costco's of the world. I'll tell you, like, we are the only sustainable brand on the shelves of Walmart even today.
What are you saying?
Yeah. And that's the largest retailer of the world we're talking about, right?
Wow.
So I think, like, so first was awareness for sure, right? We literally had to go door to door and really start educating people that there are eco-friendly options available, right? The second was accessibility. Now there are a lot of eco-friendly products in the world. Okay, so think about a jute bag in India, right? Or think about something made out of coconut shells in India, the boats made out of coconut shells of the India, right? But none of them was globally scalable. Okay.
Okay.
So how do you scale these products to 10 million, $100 million scale and
Hmm.
really have the global certification standards that need to be met for these products and be able to put that into the shelves of different retailers of the world, right? So that accessibility, that availability became a next big point for us. And finally, the affordability. Okay. Sustainability is always thought about like, a luxury, right? People think, are sustainable ke naam pe, like, they will send us some some expensive product they will try to sell us,
Yeah.
right? We understood that, look, people inherently want to be more sustainable,
Hmm.
but they have their family budgets.
Hmm.
So somehow we have to build products which not only are sustainable and have a great story behind it, but also they are affordable for everyday use by the masses, right? And that applies not only to India, that applies across the world, right? Everyone is on a budget. So I think those were the three things that we thought if we'll crack, right, will become eventually the adoption point. So that was the thing that we analyzed, on how do we build this category.
All right, I'm gonna bring a little heavier topic. You
Sure.
sold your house in the US to fund this venture. What does that kind of commitment do to your relationship with risk? How did you think about it?
So I'll tell you, like, and this is for every founder, right? Whatever business plan you make as a founder at the time of launch, it goes into dustbin within 6 months. Every founder, like, not like, and I'm not talking about me as an exception, right? That's pretty much the rule, right?
Mm,
So yeah, so we had a business plan, right? We thought like, hey, we have enough savings, we can build this business. But in the life of a founder, whenever you will start, everything that could go wrong would go wrong, right? So we started, COVID happened, right? And all of a sudden the entire global logistics went for a toss, right? A typical container from India to US, which was running around $2,200 to $2,600, came around 11,000 to $14,000 per container.
oh, wow.
Okay. But, like, you are now having a dream, you're building this business, and now
Yeah.
you have orders from the customers.
Yeah.
You cannot go back on your commitment. So again, like, one thing I realized as a founder, okay, because any early company, right? It Founder is the foundation of the company, and it literally rides on his or her words, right? So if you have given a commitment, keep that commitment, no
Hmm.
matter what, whatever it takes to keep that commitment. Please keep that commitment. Good times and bad times will come and go, but people will remember you and always say, "Oh, this guy made a commitment. He always kept it," right? And I think that will build like a reputation for us. So I think that's what happened. Like, the global logistics went for a toss. The cost of supply chain became very, very high, right? The supply chain lead times became very, very high, right? And all of this happened. So at that point in time, I said, I'll still keep my commitment, risk or no
Hmm.
risk. I think
Hmm.
for me, the bigger risk was losing my face and reputation than
Hmm.
financial risk, right? So when I valued these two things, hey, here's a financial risk and there's a reputational risk, chose the reputational risk to be a much bigger factor. We didn't take a moment. I decided, like, of course, this was not my decision. I discussed this with my wife, and we said, hey, if we have made a commitment, we'll keep the commitment, and we will sell the house if required to get the right capital to make sure that we keep our commitment. So I think that was the philosophy that we worked with on day one. We didn't raise any venture funding or anything like that for the first 1.5 year of existence. So all the mistakes were made on our dime, right?
Hmm.
All the, let's just say, all the hardship was ours. And when we have truly, truly proven the business model, that's when we went to the investors and said, hey, look, this is a company which is truly trying to disrupt the single-use plastics market. And here is the proof point we have. And these are the sacrifices that we've already made and put into this company. And that's where everyone started believing us. So I
Hmm.
think that was the story of selling the house. But in conclusion, I would say when you are deciding to be an entrepreneur, when you're deciding to be a founder, have only plan A. Okay, don't have plan B, plan C, plan D. If this doesn't work out, that. I meet a lot of founders today, and they say, like, oh, I want to start a venture, but I don't want to quit my job. And
Hmm. Yeah, tell me
that
more about this. Like, what do you think? Should people continue with the job, start building? I don't know. I mean,
I think researching is fine. Okay, during your job, right? If you want to do a lot of research for a potential business you want to build, that's great. Okay,
hmm.
you want to build an MVP, a minimum viable product, that's great, right? Uh, Even in the consumer space, like, let's just say we are building sustainable products. If somebody wants to do that, like, imagine you want to launch a skincare brand, you want to develop skincare products, that's great. You can do it with your job. Okay,
Okay.
I think the moment you decide, I'm going to launch this, I'm going to
Yeah.
launch the software, I'm going to launch this product, I'm going to launch this whatever, like, I'm going to take it to the customers, right?
Yeah.
That's the day there can't be a plan B, because now you're getting from research and product development into execution mode. And the moment you step into the world of execution, it's brutal. It
Hmm.
is 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, 7 days, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, right? So there is no stopping Like, and trust me, 80 hours a week feels very less when you're building, like, a venture, right? So at that point in time, like, one cannot compromise on the integrity of the venture and the effort it requires to do it, right? So there is a very clear distinction of what is okay,
Yeah,
right, to do
yeah.
with the job, and when it comes down to execution, it's unbelievably hard, right? So I think that's where one has to make a very clear decision that whether the job is there for, can they actually step out of the zone of security?
I think this is going to give a lot of clarity to a lot of people, especially the ones who are aspiring, when to pull the plug and get yourself completely immersed into your work and your venture, because now that is it. You can't have both. Also, you should not, because you've given enough time and attention to creating the product. Now that the product is on, this is it. Now you have to take the full leap. Touching
Absolutely.
upon the founder psychology, because we've been talking about how one needs to think, tell me, why should someone start something of their own? Is the motivation being money, ambition, deficiency, purpose, or something else? And for you personally, Rahul, what keeps you going?
Okay, so great question, by the way, right? I think like I'm a big fan of Shark Tank, by the way. Like, just looking at the inspiring stories that come out of it, right? I think a lot of founders have this misconception that path to wealth, like, I'll make a lot of money being a founder and all of that, right? Uh, if money is your primary motivator, then statistics is not on your side. Okay.
Okay, okay.
99.9% of the ventures fail, right? And I was doing this, and this is ChatGPT data, so please pardon me if this is wrong, but only 0.006% of the companies reach $100 million in
Oh,
valuation. And when I say 0.006, right? So six out of over 10,000 companies will ever make it to, like, $100 million valuation, which I think is a benchmark for a stable organization, right?
I feel like those are
Uh,
really bad stats, honestly.
yeah, so I think, like, so a founder who's only motivated by money will get demotivated very quickly, because our venture takes time to prove its business case, product market fit. There's a lot of begging that happens, right? Please kar do. And I think that all of that is very, like, it's very hard, right? And I think one of my friends from Accelerate, she said it pretty well, right? When you're a founder, be ready to go broke and go broken, right? So essentially, so I'm quoting her words here. But as a founder, money cannot be the sole motivator. Like, it's actually the resultant of everything that you do and things falling into place. A huge luck factor. I think personally, when I see, like, some of the best founders I've met in my life and the stories that I get inspired by, and possibly my story as well, are two things, right? One is this something that you will enjoy building? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, you are a founder, right?
Yeah.
What you're doing today, are you really enjoying it?
I am actually going to take a moment and tell you that of all the jobs I worked before, never have I felt so much alive and excited every day. I
Mm-hmm.
think I genuinely feel, when I used to hear people say that we feel it in us that this is the best job when we're doing it, I can vouch for me, saying that you actually feel that satisfaction and that energy flowing.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's the best feeling, right? So you have to get the feeling right first, right? I have my batchmates, and there are people I know who have quit their corporate career, went to France to do a bakery course and started their own bakery, and they're doing phenomenally well, right? So not every venture needs to be like this global scale or venture funded, all
Yeah.
of that. You enjoy running a bakery, run a bakery, right? I have equal respect for that founder, right? Who really took the risk, quit banking, did a bakery course, and started a bakery. One of my friends, like, she started rental business for the students that live in US and Canada, and made it more accessible to the students, right? So I think the first and the fundamental question that I ask any potential founder is that, is this something you would really love to build? The
Hmm.
results of this will really excite you. This is, like, might not be your passion, by the way, but the
Yeah.
results
Yeah.
will be phenomenal for you. Like, you will really see the product and you say, oh my God, I love this product. I love the what I do every day. Okay. Because that will keep you going in the hard times. Okay. Things will not fall in place in first 6 months or first one year, probably first 3 years. Okay. but what keeps you going every day. So I think that's one big motivator. And the second is more practical answer, which is essentially, are you really solving a pain point for someone?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there some real problem that you're solving? Because I see a lot of founders like, oh my God, I really want to do music. It's like amazing. What are you going to do in music, right? Is there a real thing that you're doing, right? And I'm sorry, I picked up a wrong topic, which is more art, right? But I think these are the two big things that really one should clearly evaluate before being a founder. Money aside, am I going to really love doing this every single day
Hmm.
without seeing any success or day of like light at the end of the tunnel? And the second is, does it has any practical implications for my potential customers? Am I really solving a pain point for someone? So I think these two questions, when it's answered, go build it.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to interject and ask you what keeps you going, Rahul?
So what keeps me going is essentially like, we are at the starting of our mission, right? So if I really look at our network today, right? We are still a very small company. Like, when I see how large plastics are, and if we say that we are a company which has globally took the mantle of war against plastic and providing alternative, we are not even half a percent of where we should be, right? So it's a long march, it's a marathon,
Hmm.
right? What keeps me going is that, oh my God, the places that we have been and the love that we have received from our customers is amazing, right? And the value that we have been able to create for our country and the communities that we are in, it's amazing. And that keeps me like, really going every single day. But what keeps me awake is that there's a long road ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a $200 billion plastic market that needs to go away, right? And essentially, we are doing everything we can. Like as an example, like last year we launched 100% tree-free paper products. Okay, we did an estimation that one corporate office, the amount of toilet paper they consume in the
Yeah.
US in one corporate office cost around 400,000 trees.
Wow.
Just toilet paper, nothing else. No paper towels, no nothing. Just toilet paper costs 400,000 trees in one large corporate building serving more than 1,000 employees.
Okay. Oh, wow.
That's
Okay.
and that realization keeps us awake, right? So, for example, we launched 100% tree-free product, tree-free toilet paper, tree-free kitchen towel, and now we are launching tree-free printing paper, right?
Wow.
Printing paper, $16 billion worth of printing paper gets sold only in the US, and everything like, two boxes of printing paper is one tree, right? So our job now has become like, can we really contribute to every facet of environmental damage, and can EcoSoul become the flag bearer of that, right? Really keeps us awake every night. I think keeps every person who is working in this company very passionate about the mission that we are on, right? Financials aside, everything aside, okay, there's a very mission mentality to the company, and people who really enjoy working here are part of that mission.
Perfect. Okay, we've spoken a lot about what goes behind the psyche. Now let's talk about the segment of building something from nothing. Early on, artisans and manufacturers were hesitant to work with you. We did a little digging. So, how did you earn the trust when you were asking people to believe before the results even existed in this segment?
It takes time, right? So it's not going to happen overnight, that's for sure, right? So I have no magic wand to make it happen, right? You have to earn your way to the trust. Okay, I'll tell you like two incidents, right? One working with the artisans, of course, and also working with the large manufacturing houses. Okay, because we really wanted to scale a few things. So I went to when we wanted to do 100% plastic free garbage bags and all of that, right? I went to a few manufacturers in India, right? And got rejected by at least 20 of them. Okay. So we used to go over there. We used to say, hey, we are a new company, want to do this, yada, yada, yada. And they were like, oh, no, no, you're too small for us. We don't work with such small players. Okay. So I remember one of my conversation where I went to them and I said, Uncle, please kar do, right? Just begging him, sir, please, right? And he was like, okay, theek hai, I'll do it for you. Just give me like 20 lakhs deposit. And I'm like, I don't have money for deposit. I
Yeah.
sold my house, right? He's like, okay, 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 fine, fine, fine. एक काम करो कि ट्रक निकलने से पहले पैसे दे देना. मैंने कहा अंकल आई वांट 3 months क्रेडिट. ठीक है. वो थे अच्छा कम से कम 2 ट्रक माल ले लो। मैं अंकल मैं तो आधा ट्रक लूंगा। He could not believe his ears. He was like, तुम हो कौन भाई? Right, like what are you talking about here? Like you can't fulfill my minimum order quantity. You want
Yeah.
mal on credit. You can't do any deposit. You are an unknown entity. And then I showed him my entire price. Like this is what I want to do. I left America. I left everything to do this. And I think I have order. I think we can build this. Okay. And just out of the goodness of his heart, he's like, "ये तुम अच्छे लड़के लग रहे हो यार, कर लो कोई बात नहीं."
This brings us back to when you start with a good heart and a good intention, right people start aligning, right?
And I'll tell you, right, everybody, when I was coming back to India, like,
Yeah.
a lot of people questioned that decision. It was like, oh my God, India mein business बहुत difficult है,
And
right?
settle job को छोड़ करके आ रहे हैं अपना
Like, what is
पूरा
wrong with you? Like, you don't even have a visa issue. You're a US citizen, right? Like, people just could not believe their ears that I'm coming back to India to do a business,
yeah.
right? If you want to come back and do like you want to be a CEO of something, everybody will say, it makes sense, right? But it's like, you will do business in India? Have you ever worked in
उन्होंने
India?
वही वाली ट्रांजेक्शन्स देखी है ना, इसीलिए दैट बिकम्स एन इजी अंडरस्टैंडेबल कॉन्सेप्ट.
Huh. And I was not being a tech founder, right? If you come back to India and be a tech founder, even that is acceptable for people. When literally started saying, like, I'm going to build sustainable products company, first of all, people thought I'm starting an NGO or something, right? And I
Wow.
said, no, I'm not starting an NGO, right? It's like there are a lot of jute bag NGOs and like, like all those kind of things. So basically, people thought I'm starting an NGO. It's like, no, I'm not starting an NGO. I'm starting a real company. And then they were like, but you have no experience working in India. And I'm like, yes, I don't have any experience working in India. Then they were like, okay, तुम्हें पता है इंडिया में जॉब इज सो डिफिकल्ट, इंडिया में बिजनेस तो तुम मतलब तुम
भूल ही
भूल
जाओ.
जाओ, right? So everybody said, right, it's very difficult in India.
Yeah.
और देखिए इतने regulations हैं, इतना ये है. I'll tell you, there are such, like there's not like one, two, or five. There are hundreds of good business people in India who will help the heck out of you.
Oh,
Like,
I'm going to
like
circulate this line of yours everywhere.
Like, I have met so many good people that I've done business with, right? That helped me when I was nothing. Nobody knew my company, nobody knew nothing, right? And they were like, you're just looking like a good guy who is sincere, right? Make sure you fulfill your commitment. And I told them the story. Sir, I always fulfill my commitment, whether it takes me to sell my house or not. I'll always fulfill my commitments. Like, if I'm saying 3 months payment, it will be 3 months payment. It will not be 3 months and 1 day payment. Whatever it takes, I'll fulfill my commitment. But I think keeping that word becomes very, very important in that case. Lekin India is such a great place to start a business. There are people who are genuine. There are people who genuinely want to help you. There are people who want to take a risk with you. There are people who will go out of the way to help you out. I remember when I was trying to export my first container from India, one of the large manufacturers that I was working with, they said, do you know how to register an AD code on the port and IEC code in the bank and yada yada yada? He
Oh
said,
my
I have an exports guy, will help you out.
Oh my God. See, these are
So,
the things ना, इसी में आपको लगता है कि अच्छे लोग भी हैं और वो हेल्प भी कर रहे हैं.
और एक दो नहीं है, बहुत सारे हैं.
हाँ.
That's the bigger point, right? It's not an exception. By the way, people are generally good,
People are
right?
generally good. Yeah, this
Right?
is what I also say, that when sometimes people say that, oh, this person is bad or something like that, I usually, I have the psyche and an understanding, which is people are largely good. It's only the situation which tends to happen in a certain manner, and then people act a certain way. It's just that.
No, absolutely, absolutely. You'll find so I'll not say that I did not get rejections, right? As I said, like the first 20 manufacturers, like, said we'll not work with you, but you'll always find that 21st guy, right? Who will take pity on your situation and be willing to work with you, right? So I think that was the case with me working with a large company. With the artisans, right? It's a little bit more tricky, right? For a lot of these artisans, this is their culture, this is their household, right? So when you go to an artisan, it's not like the husband has a job and wife does this. The entire family does it.
Yeah.
Probably the entire family does it for generations. So when we started Palm Leaf Lace business, right, it was a cottage industry. Everybody had machines in their house. एक एक दो दो machine, and they used to get free electricity in the night, so they used to do the day labor job and run the machine in the evening, and the wife and the kids used to package those products in the morning. So it was a very a cottage industry. And I remember, like, and it was all cash. Like, you have to literally go and hand out the money and get the plates. And it was a massive collection operation. And the moment I saw that industry, I was like, this is massively good industry, great product. Like, we can get it USDA certified. Everything is good, but it's not scalable. Like,
Hmm.
how many villages and households do I go to, right, to collect these things? It's not scalable. If I want to do 15 containers or 55 containers a month, this will not work out. So we
Hmm.
became the mission where we started going from place to place. We first started with acquiring plates from people, like, hey, we want to buy your plates.
Hmm.
Then we started giving
Hmm.
them free leaves, like, aap patta lo, aap plate bana ke do, right? So it took time, 5 months, 6 months. We started working with them. And then I finally proposed the idea that we have to build a factory.
Hmm.
Okay. Now the key question becomes is you cannot become competitor to the people you are working with. Okay.
Yeah.
So all the factories, by the way, so I said, if you want to run your Ghar Ka factory, that's fine. We still buy plates from you. We are also building a factory. Tell me who from your family can come and work in the factory.
Oh, that is such
So
a good
we,
thought.
so yeah, so you cannot destroy the ecosystem that is supporting you, right? A
Hmm.
lot of business people, the mistake they do is essentially they become competitors to the people who really got you there, right? So
Yeah.
we did a parallel model. Even today, by the way, even today we procure in the open market from the people who domestically produce at their home, okay? And we really segregate it into, like, different countries it needs to go to. But we have also built India's largest factory in palm leaf plate, right? And
Wow.
very happy to say that, right? We employ more than 650 people, and our factory in Shimoga is 100% run by women, like 100%. Okay. There might be one or two
I
security
also have a
guards.
question on
Yeah.
that later.
So 100% run by women. And a lot of these women were day laborers in Manrega projects, which is not year-round employment. They were day laborers in stone quarries in Shimoga, which is again very tough. Like, and today when I see the women, right, they're COVID, no COVID, we never fired anybody, right? They have now stable employment for the last 4.5 years with the company. Uh, their husbands started e-rickshaws, right? So all these ladies who wants to come to the come to the factory and go back, so they started businesses around our factory, right?
Wow.
So a few ladies, they started tiffin business. The few ladies, they started e-rickshaw business. Few ladies, they started, like, a lot of ancillary businesses that sprouted around our factory. And that is very heartening to see, right? And that's how you become trustworthy, and it takes a lot of time to get that trust. But
Yeah.
I will tell you the result of that trust. 4.5 years, zero inflation in our product cost. ZERO.
Talk about it.
People will give us product at 20% discount because EcoSoul.
Hmm.
If people will come from open market and try to procure the product, then नहीं, हम EcoSoul को देते हैं.
This
17 districts in
shows a lot
Karnataka.
about the credibility you've built, Rahul, and
And
the
I think
people around you.
one has to, like, one has to just give it time, right? And
Yeah.
again, your word is the most important thing. Can people trust it? People know that if EcoSoul said, if you give plates to EcoSoul, right, and you will get the money in your account. They don't even so when we started the operation, everyone used to say, okay, here are like 700 plates, give me the money on the spot. They used to demand the money. Today, because we can't do any cash business, so we transfer the money in everyone's account. So today, when villagers come, they hand over the plates and they say, oh, यहाँ से चलो EcoSoul का पैसा तो account में आता है. So they don't ask for any security, any guarantee, no nothing, because they know if they can trust this company, nothing will go wrong.
Perfect. Perfect.
So I think that's the process. Like, that takes time, and but that's the process. There's no overnight magical wand on how you win trust of people.
Will this be right? I'm sensing obviously patience and people centric skills and the right intent.
The intent is one, right? For sure, it's
For
number
sure.
one, right? If you
Yeah.
have the right intent, right? And I always tell people, right? And of course, like, we have large teams here, right? We have factory managers. I say businesses don't do businesses, like, with each other, right? So I always tell people that, hey, uh Bajaj is is not doing business with EcoSoul.
Yeah.
Okay, it's people do business with people, right? So I think that dynamic is very, very important. How you build the relationship, how transparent you are, and how genuine can you make your commitments and keep them, right? So I think that people centric approach is very, very important, right? Intent is always number one. If the intent is bad, then nothing can fall right.
Always starts with the intent first. You have to have the right intent. फिर उसके बाद ही everything will pick up and the other pieces will get into the story, right?
Yeah, you'll be very surprised to know, by the way, we have zero sales team. We have the
What?
largest we have the largest sales network in the world in sustainability space, 23,000 stores worldwide, 10 countries, and nobody has been able to achieve this kind of scale in the sustainable category across the world. Nobody, right?
You
And
guys should, EcoSoul should be a case study, by the
we
way.
and we don't have a sales team.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so it's a lot word of mouth, right? And a lot of time is we as founders or the co-founders, we meet potential clients
Hmm.
and we just tell them what we are trying to build, the products we have, and how it can help the customers,
Hmm.
right? And we are today available on every single quick commerce, e-commerce platform, many stores across the country and across the world, and we never ever went to any of the platform to sell our product,
Hmm.
right? And I think that speaks volumes about the culture we are bringing, right, to the company. You can come to my company and you ask who is the salespeople, there is none.
Yeah. Wow. Now that I know, I mean, it's good that you've told me. Next time I'm going to walk in, so I will not be surprised because Rahul gave me a heads up already.
Right. So I think that's how we have built the business.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to take you now into the operational segue. A lot of
Mhm.
young startups avoid manufacturing because it's complex and capital heavy, Why
Mhm.
did you choose to build in manufacturing instead of an asset light growth?
I think a couple of reasons, right? So one is, how do you make sustainability scalable,
Hmm.
right? What we very quickly understood is that while traditional industries have scale, okay, sustainable industries were not built for scale. They were mostly cottage industries, very fragmented, and a lot of time, right? Fragmentation also brings inconsistency, right? So when you're really targeting a global audience, right, you have to be USDA certified and TUV certified, and all of these certifications are required for US and the European market. You cannot have inconsistency in your product.
Hmm.
Okay. So one is, we are not manufacturer by choice, right? We are more manufacturer by, I will say, circumstances. Okay,
Hmm.
that's number one. Number two, what we also realize is that when you do manufacturing at scale, right, when you see large factories that are getting put up, right, the cost of transportation of raw material gets very, very expensive. Okay, because again, sustainable product raw material is again fragmented,
Yeah.
right? So you have to really, so we are not building a steel plant, okay, where you
Hmm.
know where the mines are and like where the coal is, right? We are building sustainable products, right? So we completely flipped the book on sustainability. We said we're going to have micro factories. We're going to exactly put up the factory where the raw material sources are. So we have our factories in Muzaffarnagar and Tumkur and Shimoga and Chhattisgarh and places like that, which are really the hinterlands of India, right? So we
Hmm.
don't have factory in Delhi, Bombay, Noida, Bangalore. Like, no, we are literally in massive rural areas of India where the factories are. So I think that was the philosophy behind manufacturing, that we will put up micro factories in where the raw material is. And the second is, we will put up factories that meet global standards. So, as an example, for bagasse virgin pulp fiber manufacturing, we are the only USDA and FDA certified facility in India. So, if a US manufacturer wants to buy a product in India, we're pretty much the only choice they have.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I think that also led to a lot of credibility for us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
On how we actually built manufacturing, right? And very, very happy to say that we are 18% cheaper than Chinese even before import tariffs. So we
Wow.
are one of the lowest cost manufacturer of our product across the world, period. There is
Wow.
no other player in the world, right, which manufactures our product at a lower cost than we do. And I
Amazing.
think that's what we have been able to pass on to the customers.
Good stuff. Now, we spoke a lot about sustainability, so I'm going to bring your attention to it. Sustainability is often marketed as aspirational, but you were building during a pandemic, rising costs and losses. What almost broke the business at that point in time?
I think we came to the brink a couple of times, by the way. It's not once, right? So I think first phase was essentially like, of course, when we started the business and pandemic hit, right? And there is nothing we could do about it, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
the phase, right? So we almost got broken there, right? And when the first phase was over, that's when we sold the house and put more money and capital into the business, right? Like, we were not expecting a second wave of pandemic, right? It's like, okay, अब तो vaccine आ गया है, things will be better, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So let's go full steam ahead. And I still remember May 2021, right? When the second wave hit us, right? We had, we were all in and we had the orders, we had everything. And business came almost to the brink, right? So government announced a full scale lockdown for the second wave because we knew the second wave was very, very bad from a pandemic perspective, right? I remember the moment I heard the news, I rushed to the DM's office and I said, look, I almost got bankrupted last year. I will get bankrupted the second time, and this time I'm not going to get up. Like, there is no more money left, right? What can you do to help me out? And again, a lot of good people in India. He said, look, there is a government order, so there is nothing I can do about it. What we can do, because you are an export oriented house, we can create a bio bubble for you, which
Okay.
means which means that here's your warehouse. It will be under complete lockdown. You
Okay.
choose the people who will work in the warehouse. They will live there, they will eat there, they will do everything in the warehouse. And the only thing I'll allow is loading and unloading of trucks. So the people who are in the warehouse can never leave.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So I still remember the story where May, June, the heat.
Yeah.
So it was Chhattisgarh, 45 degrees Celsius outside, 48, 49 degrees Celsius inside the shed.
Oh my
It's a
God.
tin shed. No fan, no cooler, no AC, no nothing.
Can't even
And I
imagine.
lived with the labor for 2 months in that shed.
Oh wow.
But I made sure that not even a single container went late. Okay, we packed everything, we manufactured everything, we made sure that every single container left on time. That was the second time my business almost came very, very close to the brink, right? But I think the lesson learned over here is that again, I know there are ladies who who lived in that shade. There were people who lived in that shade. And I think the sacrifices they have done for the company like I was the founder of the company, so my sacrifice is always lower, right? But the people who left their families to live in that bio bubble, right? That was unimaginable. When I still remember when I went to the labor saying that hey, we have to live over here, यहाँ रहना पड़ेगा, यहाँ पे करना पड़ेगा. तो बोले कि कैसे करेंगे साहब, लाइक हमारी भी फैमिली है, ये है वो है. मैंने कहा कि देखो, अगर नहीं करेंगे तो ये सब बंद हो जाएगा. मेरे
हाँ.
पास पैसे नहीं बचे, ये है वो है. देन आई स्टिल रिमेम्बर कि लाइक पीपल वर लाइक कि हमें आप एक दिन दीजिए. तो आउट ऑफ लाइक 80-90 लेबर्स वी हैव, 40 केम बैक एंड सेड कि ठीक है, हम रहेंगे, हम काम करेंगे. एंड आई गेव द कमिटमेंट कि मैं भी तुम लोग के साथ रहूंगा. मैं भी अपनी फैमिली छोड़ के यही यही वेयर हाउस में रहूंगा. एंड आई स्टेड विद देम, आई लिव्ड विद देम. Okay, so I think this is where, like, I think true test of entrepreneurship is not about Shark Tank and raising funds and like all that
Yeah.
glim and glamour that goes behind it, right? It is facing real situations in life and how do you react to those situations, right? And it's not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted, right? Lekin हाँ, these are the two times, both during pandemic, where our business came very, very close to like to the brink, and somehow we survived. Not because again I have a magic wand or anything, but because there were people who were ready to support us.
Yeah, and do you also feel like it's easy to put the gloves down and say कि नहीं हो रहा है या कुछ नहीं समझ आ रहा है, pandemic is hitting for the second time, can't really think about it. But then do you feel like you also something got into you and you were like, I am going to figure this out, कुछ ना कुछ तो करना ही है to make it work, and then people bought into that vision of yours because you had a good intent and they were seeing what they were seeing of you.
hmm So I think, look, here's the thing, two, three things, right? Again, good example here is that if you're driven by money, this is where you give up. Okay, this is exactly like, अभी सब पैसा लगा दिया, खत्म हो गया, I'm out. Okay, so any founder who was driven by money would have given up on the second stage, right? There are two, three things that are required. Okay, number one is essentially your and what really kept me going at that point in time, I always told my wife, I am going to keep my commitment. If I
Hmm.
have made a commitment to my customer that this container will come, that this container will come. There is nothing about business. There's not like I was not thinking I was not thinking vision or anything like that at that point in time. I was only thinking my word is on the stake. That's
Yeah.
it. एंड आई गोना वर्क हार्ड टू मेक श्योर माई कमिटमेंट गेट्स फुल्ड. ये दो कंटेनर जाने के बाद बिजनेस बंद हो जाएगा, मुझे फर्क नहीं पड़ता, लेकिन ये दो कंटेनर तो टाइम पे जाएंगे ही जाएंगे. मतलब देर इज नो
Hmm.
डाउट अबाउट दैट. ओके. सो आई थिंक दैट unending desire to keep your commitment is was
Yeah.
kept me going, right? The second thing is you cannot expect people to make sacrifices that you can't. Okay. So if you tell the labor आपको रहना पड़ेगा, and by the way I'll travel in my AC गाड़ी and live in an AC bungalow, that wouldn't fly, right?
Yeah.
If you cannot be in the situation yourself and be ready to struggle with the people who are with you in the journey, it's not going to work out. So I think these are the two lessons that I took from that, right? There were many lessons I took from that warehouse experience, by the way. Like, I still remember I came from global supply chain of Wayfair. So I have very big plans and big ideas about like this is how you run supply chain, this is the coding system, barcode, ye wo. And my supervisor, who was like the warehouse supervisor, was like 10th pass guy.
Hmm.
उसने मेरे को आके बोला, सर आप जो समझा रहे हो ना किसी की समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. मैं समझा के देखूं. मैंने कहा, ठीक है तुम समझाओ.
हाँ.
एंड देन द वे ही एक्सप्लेन्ड टू द लेडीज लाइक जिस जिस डब्बे पे लाल बिंदी लगी है वो सबको वहां रहना है, जिस जिस डब्बे पे काली बिंदी है वो सबको वहां जाना है, राइट? द वे ही एक्सप्लेन टू द पीपल इट बिकेम सो एफिशिएंट सो क्विकली, देन आई वेरी क्विकली रियलाइज्ड
You
कि
have to
this is
talk
how
in the language.
stuff
Yeah.
happen at ground level, right?
Yeah.
And a 10th pass guy will, if you're willing to learn, a 10th pass guy will teach you something that your global experience won't teach you, on
Kind of feel
how to
like,
simplify things for people you're working with.
yeah, entrepreneurship is like full of so many stories. What people see from the outside is, I mean, glam and status and successes you've built. But there are so many stories that you've had to go through and lessons you've had to learn to get
Mhm.
to that level.
So I don't think, and if you talk to a lot of founders, by the way, like, what do they really like, being an entrepreneur? It wouldn't be the, by the way, like, I'm not saying that, like, when you are successful, right, and eventually it works out, right, the money part is good, right? I'm not denying that, right? Absolutely, there's no walking away from that reality. If you make it, amazing, right? But when I talk to a lot of fellow co-founders, okay, what they really enjoyed is the journey, right?
Mm.
The sleepless nights उस समय में उतना अच्छा नहीं लगता है, but like, when the sleepless night, the uncertainty, the journey, the struggles, right? We all look back at it and like, अरे यार क्या amazing experience था, right? So I think that's what you have to enjoy as a founder, right? The struggle, the daily struggle, right? We always tell ourselves, like, we always wake up with five impossible problems to solve, and you
Mm.
go to bed after solving those five problems. And the fulfillment of solving those problems, right, is it has no parallel.
Unmatchable. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what we really enjoy being an entrepreneur. The solve.
Love the detailing that you're giving, and I think this is just becoming so interesting. Like I have chills moments beach mein when you're telling me a lot of those things, and I'm like, acha aise bhi hota hai, acha ye bhi hua tha. So if I'm getting so glued, I'm sure a lot of people listening to it will find it so much more enriching and eye-opening from what you see and what the reality is. And to pick your call right away if you're in it for a long run, and if you feel super passionate about whatever that you're going for, stop the monetary aspect aside because that will eventually come as a result of everything that you're putting day in day out. But if you enjoy the journey, then this is your calling.
That's it. That's it. You have to really enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, a lot of people say, like, you have to be really passionate about things. I'm just passionate about keeping commitments. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Like, whether I'm keeping a commitment in terms of making an appointment and making it to the appointment, or I'm keeping a commitment to my shareholders, or I'm just passionate about keeping commitments, right? I just happened to come across an idea which I believed in, and then I just kept my commitments. That's all I did, right? Again, no rocket science here, no no magic wands here, no nothing, right? It's
Yeah.
just do your job, right? That's the mentality we all walk in, and we just do our jobs, right? So that's how we think about it.
All right, Rahul. A very important part of this podcast is to touch upon the topic of scaling without losing soul. Now, EcoSoul now exports to over 10 countries and works with 150 manufacturers. What systems had to change as the business scaled, and what values refused to change still?
So I think there are two, three things, right? So one is essentially, right, and again, our industry is one industry which is very prone to greenwashing, right? Our industry is very, it's one industry where it's very hard to win a consumer's trust.
Hmm.
Okay. So I think there are two, three things that we do, right? One is when you are working with very large set of manufacturers, which is spread across not only in India, which is spread across the world, right? You're working with such a massive supply chain, right? It cannot work on intuition, right?
Hmm.
There is a massive tech infrastructure and backbone that you have to create for the company that a lot of these things, just to tell you, like every month we serve 1800 POs,
Hmm.
1800 POs a month that we serve as a
Wow.
company. So I think a lot of this you have to build systems and processes, right? You have to build the tech infrastructure, you have to build the backbone of the company that can truly survive. Now, when I say survive, by the way, survive, right? Is the word, right? They can truly survive that level of operational complexity, right?
Hmm.
So I think so we became a highly operational organization, and now we are still not a highly marketing organization. I said we don't have salespeople. So we became a highly execution focused operational organization. So now we are a 50-50 tech organization and an operational organization, right? So I think, so I will say like I have three prominent teams: new product development, product execution, which is operations and supply chain, and really the tech side of it, right? These are the three core teams that are backbone of this company, right? And I think that's what that's the evolution of the company that we actually work towards, right? Over a period of 5 years, right? The second thing and very important part of your question is that how do you make sure that the soul doesn't go away,
Yeah.
right? And I think, and this is a human tendency, by the way, we are very good at lying to ourselves, right? So essentially everybody says in their mind, I'm a good guy, right? The question is, does the world say you are a good guy, right? So EcoSoul, irrespective of, we know our processes, we know the products, we know everything, but irrespective of everything, we do a massive amount of global audits and massive amount of global certification. So we are one of the most certified companies in the world. You can go to our website and look at all the certifications we have. So we are not relying on our claims and our internal standards. We are making sure that we are certified not only by the Indian agencies, but by the global agencies. So we have been audited by PPI and TUV and USDA and FDA and FSSAI. We are food grade. We are SMETA compliant. We have good labor practices compliant. We are good manufacturing practices compliant. So I think this level of rigorous compliance that we do with
Yeah.
global agencies keeps us honest in our work. Okay, because one of the greatest danger at our scale is that we lose track of like there is always a shareholder perspective versus a customer's perspective versus a founder's perspective, and we want to make sure that what truly wins is basically the eco soul perspective, which is essentially, can we still do great products at great prices, which are certifiably sustainable, not just from a claims perspective. And oh, we are sustainable. No, who says you are sustainable? That
Yeah.
matters the most, right? So that audit standards, that global compliance doesn't go away in EcoSoul, right? We do an annual audit, we do a quarterly audit, we do all of that, but we make sure that we are true to ourselves. Just to let you know, we are the only food grades home essential company in India. Nobody's food grade in India. So we all consume in different cups and plates and bowls and cutlery and all of that. None of that is certified food grade.
Wow.
None. When I
Okay.
say none, it's none.
I am rethinking. What am I eating into? I should
Oh,
check
by
that.
the way, okay, so let me give you an example, by the way. Like you're absolutely right. Okay. So a lot of people think when we eat in plastic containers, there are
Yeah.
microplastics going in our body, which is true.
Mhm.
Do you know all these plates that come in India, these white plates and all of that? Like,
Yeah,
these,
yeah. For events and everything that we use, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. 99% of the plates produced in India are from recycled paper. Punani Raddi, garbage.
Oh, okay.
So you put all of that garbage in a pulper, you put a
Huh.
lot of bleach in that garbage, it all becomes white and you make plates out of that. They are carcinogen
Oh my God.
because there is no certification standards. There is no compliance standards. There's nothing. We are the only USD FDA certified facility. So be careful about what touches your food because it's going inside your body. And I think all of these disposable products that we all eat in, none of that is food grade. None of
I
them
feel
is
like nobody
certified.
knows about it. And I'm just so very thrilled that you're exposing all of these things so people will
Oh,
hear it from the podcast, but I'll also publicize it. But I think you guys should also like bring this is the USP. People do not even know about this.
oh, thank you for saying that, by the way, right? So essentially, believe it or not, it's very hard to get food grade certification in India, right? So FSSAI, by the way, but they didn't have disposable as a category that they certified. So
Okay.
if I'm going to claim food grade in India, I should be FSSAI certified. Now they have added the category. We are getting food grade certified in India. We are food grade certified across the world, by the way. Okay, we're just not food grade certified in India. But I think but you will very clearly see it within a week's time, and it's not far away. But before the end of February, right? All our campaigns, all the website, all the products, imagery will say food grade in there, right?
Let's
So
go.
so I think, but the message is not about my products. The message is that people should be very careful about what they eat in. People are very careful about what they put on their skin. People are very careful about what they wear. But this is food. This is literally going inside your body. Think about the bleach and the chemical. The chemical that they use to bleach the product is KR16, by the way, right? Which is a known carcinogen.
Oh my God. Okay, listen. But this is just getting heavy because I feel like people will be able to take preventive actions only when they're aware of it. And like we just said, for me, I mean, those plates have been coming at every events every now and then, whether you're in a corporate or you're at home. कोई भी छोटा फंक्शन हो रहा है या आप कहीं बाहर जा रहे हो बिकॉज इजीली मिल जाते हैं ना मार्केट से एंड यू डोंट रियली हैव टू अप्लाई योर ब्रेन्स nobody would have thought that this is what the background story is.
Yes, and that's why when we do EcoSoul, we do everything which is natural in color. It's not bleached, it's nothing, right? We don't add chemicals. And again, last thing I'll say, and this is not a product promotion, right? We have one set of factories. So the product that we sell in USA is exactly the product we sell in UK, exactly the product we sell in UAE, is exactly the product we sell in India. Okay, there is no distinction. So my product, if it's safe for a US consumer, it is
Yeah.
absolutely safe for an Indian consumer as well. There is no distinction in the product. It's one factory at the end of the day from where the products come.
I'm I'm just thrilled. We happen to be the first podcast where we've highlighted all of these concepts that people are going
Yeah.
to learn. All right.
So, anyways, I think that's important, right? For people to know what they eat in.
Very important, very important. Okay. So when people think about sustainability, they rarely imagine billion-dollar tech-enabled global enterprises.
Mm.
Now, how does technology play a role in scaling sustainability at EcoSoul?
So I think technology plays part at multiple levels, right? So first, technology plays part in terms of your product development. Okay, so for example, okay, when we started developing our own bagasse plates, right? We were became one of the first companies in the world which uses 70% bagasse and 30% mix of proprietary wheat straw, rice straw, and bamboo pulp, right? And it's very hard. It took us 2 years to develop that formula, right?
Okay.
But think about all the problems that we talk about in Delhi, like, people burning parali in their farms and all of that, right? But people will, and again, slogans help, but slogans only go so far. You have to provide a right economic incentive to the farmers to really sell their parali. Okay, and we became the first, and again, we are not huge scale, right? We're still a very small company. Okay, but we became like 30% per ali, and like, that really got our cost down by 20%, by the way, right? So it helped us as a business as well. But technology played a very important part in really developing new formula, like tree free papers, tree free tissues, tree free printing paper and all of that. And in addition to that, some of the other products with bagasse that we have developed, right? So I think this is where tech plays a very, very important part on new development. And then tech plays a very important part on how you run your supply chain. Okay. When you're talking about a global supply chain, there are massive factors or variables you have to control, right? Right from delivery schedule to PO fulfillment to shipping lines to everything from trucking standards, right? So I think all of that also needs a very important technology backbone. I'll be very happy to say there are only 7 people in the entire operations team of EcoSoul. Outside of factories, only 7 people who run the entire global supply chain of EcoSoul.
I'm amazed. I mean, it's such a big organization, such a big cause, and seven is a super efficient team, I think.
Yeah, we have 100 people headquarter team, half of which, like I think more than half, 60 people are just tech. Okay, so
Okay.
we believe in the fact that the operations or marketing or new product development or client development or enterprise management, all of these teams, right? They should only handle the exceptions, right? So if there
Okay.
is something breaking down in supply chain, that's where our operations team get into act. Okay.
Oh,
The
wow.
regular processes has to be automated end to end. So when we get all the POs, they get collated into one system. From there, we generate the entire demand plan. From there, we generate the procurement and the production plan. From there, we generate the container plan. So all of that is fully automated in EcoSoul, right? So I think that's where technology plays a very, very important part into how you efficiently run a business, because that scale business cannot be run manually, right? And
Perfect.
all of that is in-house developed software, right? So I think this is where it plays a very important part in running a global scale business.
I also feel like, Rahul, you're setting a benchmark for the companies to come now because of the focus, clear focus on technology and how you've automated a lot of things, making only the other portions handle the exceptions. I don't think many people have a thought like this. Not many people start with a company like that. The systems and processes have been running for like ages and years, and that is the understanding that most have. But the fact that you're putting so much emphasis and intention behind technology and innovation, I think it's commendable. Like I said, you're setting a precedent for people to come now.
No, thank you for that. But we had an advantage, right? The advantage we had was we were not bogged down by legacy systems, right? So if you take me to what some of the larger corporations of India or the world, by the way, we are all the same, right? They have legacy systems and legacy processes. Like it's very, very hard for them to change anything, okay? Because we had nothing. So we were in a highly advantageous situation to think about how do we really ideally solve this problem. So we
Yeah.
we we were able to take a step that some of the large corporations can't, right? So essentially we understood that, right? That's our advantage. We are a small company, we are a nimble company, we can design our processes, we have all the freedom, and I think that really helped, right? So
Mhm.
I would say any disadvantage is actually an advantage on how you look at it, right?
That is
So
so true. Okay, we're going to touch upon a term that you use, greenwashing, and you said that
mhm,
greenwashing is a major challenge in sustainability today.
right.
Question is, what is EcoSoul trying to build real accountability and credibility? But before you start answering this question, could you first explain it to the audience what greenwashing really is for people who don't really understand?
So I think greenwashing is the difference between claim and the reality is how I
Okay.
look at it.
Okay.
Okay. The claim could be sustainable, right? Like for example, in India, we get something called oxo biodegradable trash bags. Okay.
Correct.
And it is like if you go to Amazon today and you search oxo biodegradable, first of all, when people hear the word biodegradable, they assume that it's good for environment, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Secondly, oxo biodegradable is just an oxymoron, right? It's basically it's a plastic that degrades in 5 years rather than 500 years. It still becomes microplastic.
Okay.
Okay, so it's still plastic, 100% petroleum-based plastic. So I think greenwashing is all about like what you claim it to be, right? Or you pretend
Yeah.
it to be versus how actually the product delivers. Oxo biodegradable is banned in Europe and America. It
Okay.
gets and it gets sold as a sustainable alternative in India, as an example, right? So
Okay.
I think that's the major challenge in the industry where people are making claims. They say sustainable, they biodegradable, they do all of that, but they don't have any certifications to back those claims.
Hmm.
Okay. So that becomes a very important point that anybody can make a claim, right? I can make a claim that I'm a good guy, right? How
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
people actually say that becomes a big, big question mark. And also, it is sometimes because the European and the American standards are so well defined, and sometimes we face a little bit of ambiguity in how sustainability is defined in India, right? A lot of people use that loophole, right, to really design their products. Okay, so for example, you're not sustainable in Europe and America if you use BPA wala chemicals, right? So
Okay.
so in bagasse plate in India, they use a binding agent which has BPA in it. Again, it's a known carcinogen, right? But in US and America, you can't claim sustainability if you have BPA
Hmm.
in your products. So I think because of some of those standards, which are very ambiguous in our country, right? Sometimes people get away with greenwashing. And hence, we as EcoSol, we take very seriously all the certifications, not only from the Indian regulatory perspective, but also from global regulatory perspective. So we don't take any shortcuts in the products that we do. So, and by the way, a lot of people said like India mein bechna hai, you have to be really price sensitive, all of that, which we are, by the way. Today we control more than 50% market share of India.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. So I believe that when you give good products to
Yeah.
people,
The choice
okay,
is
at
up.
an affordable price, right? And we're not the cheapest though, by the way, but we are affordable. But when you give good products, when people see value in your products, right? I don't think getting market share becomes a problem after that. Again, the question of are you able to keep the commitments that you have made on your packaging? Okay, are they true? Are they verifiable?
Yeah.
Okay, I think verifiable is the word I was looking for. Okay, claims versus verifiable claims are two different things.
Got it. Okay. Really good discussion. I'm going to bring your attention now to talk about leadership and people. And I've
Mhm.
been waiting to touch upon this topic. In the very initial part of our discussion, you mentioned that a majority of your workforce is women. Was this intentional from the start, or did it emerge organically from the ecosystem you were trying to build?
I think it's a combination again, right? So there's no easy answer to that, right? In certain cases, by the way, because like for example, when we started working with the artisans, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of men used to go to their farmland fields, right? There were a lot of factories, but the women used to stay at home to build those products, right? So we knew that we have to engage with women, right?
Hmm.
Because they were naturally in that trade already,
Yeah.
right? So a part of that was very organic, right? The women were already there. And part of that was intentional. We know that when we started the factory, okay, people started telling me that like, hey, by the way, do you know factory job is different? जब तक ये लोग घर पे काम कर रहे थे, women were fine, right? But in a factory setting, I think you should hire more men and yada yada yada. And it's like, no, they already know the trade.
Yeah.
Why would I replace the women with men and train them and all of that? They said, but sir, factory में नहीं होता है. Factory में there are this problem, that problem. And so people kept on counting the problems of employing women in factory. I said, no, I'm going to take that risk,
Okay,
right?
I'm going to ask one question which is coming to my mind. When these women were already working on the products from home, why did you feel the need of bringing them to the factory?
This was not scalable model, right? The
Got
cottage industry, like one machine in every home is not scalable, right? If you have to meet the global certification standards because your factories will be audited and all of that, and you want to meet European and American standards and keep the consistency in the product, you have to put up a factory which is at large scale. Okay.
Perfect.
Now the question is, who do you trust to be your partner in that factory? Okay. Do you bring men, right?
Hmm.
Or who naturally are more able-bodied, or do you trust the women, right? Who will be there with you in the journey? And with God's grace, we made the right decision, right? We offered employment to the women, and we're very happy to say we have more than 95% retention rate, right? In the last 4.5 years, nobody leaves the company, which is great for us, right? And we have built a relationship, right? That is unparalleled, right? Because now we have relationship with their families, not with the people as an employee,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's something that we cultivated very intentionally, right? So there is an organic element to that, and then there was an intention that we said, okay, this organic element should just prosper in a
Yeah.
setting which is very different from the current setting.
Perfect. All right, tell us. You've led teams in global corporations and now in a purpose driven startup. How is leadership different when people's livelihoods are directly tied to your decisions?
Oh my God, that's the most, I would say that's the heaviest burden you carry as a founder, right? So obviously, there are shareholder interests that you have to be very aware of, right? So there are people who are trusting you, right? Obviously, there are employees, but but when people's family and the livelihood depends on you, then it goes. And again, I've worked in global corporations, right? And I have worked in global corporations at the time of financial crisis, at the time of repercussions of the financial crisis. And for us, like I remember when I was at American Express, we ended up laying off 45,000 people. That was a third of the entire global workforce that American Express had, right? Uh, and it never felt real because we were in corporate finance and essentially it all looked like an Excel sheet exercise. Oh, by the way, 30% from here, 20% from there, 50% from there. Okay, this team should go off. We should close down this business, right? In a corporation, whenever you make such decisions about people,
Yeah.
those are not real. That never feels real, right?
Yeah.
But the moment you are the founder, you're the entrepreneur, right? Every error you make on your Excel sheet can lead to someone losing their livelihood, right? If I make a wrong demand plan, put up a factory, and the factory utilization rates go down, and I have to fire people, that's a very real thing, right?
Tell me what happens in the mental psyche. How does that corporate guy changes and comes into the founder psyche, and suddenly all of these people, the families, you start feeling the pressure.
It's very very different. It can't be explained in word, kind of different, right? So like I remember, as I said, like when we were in the corporate, right? You feel bad, right? Oh my God, there is a layoff going on in the company. You feel bad, but at the end of the day, you have your job, right? And that's fine because you go back home, you play with your kids, you pay your EMIs, you pay your credit card bill, and you still ride the same car that you were riding before.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I remember when we were when we became founders, right? I have a very very simple rule, right? That the entire company salary goes out on 5th of every month. My salary goes on 10th of every month. Okay.
okay.
I get paid after every single person in the company gets paid. After. Okay. And this is to send out a message to everyone, right? That who am I working for, right? I have a very, very clear principle that any founder, right, always has to carry that burden, and that burden cannot be just in words. Okay. And I'm happy if somebody wants to audit it. My salary gets set up separately in the company, and it gets paid only when everyone else get paid. And I think that is something that I remind myself of, right? That I am the last one to take a penny out of this company after I have fulfilled commitment to the entire communities that are dependent on us. And I
Yeah,
think that's why we never laid off even a single person during the COVID days. We never laid off afterwards. We never laid off when Donald Trump put tariff on us and our exports went down a little bit. We never did any layoff because we know that we'll come out of this, and the people who are stick around with us for the last 4.5 years, let's trust, we will be there. So
yeah.
I think all of that happened. Okay. And we are one of the very rare startups which are profitable, right? So a little bit less financial burden on us, right? But I think that's the philosophy that we all live with.
Great. Okay, now a question that most people listening or watching to this episode would like to know, which is how do you define work life balance as a founder for yourself and for the people who work with you? And what are your thoughts on the idea of an 80-hour week? You said.
Yes. So I know there's a huge debate in the corporate world, right, about 70-hour work weeks. And, we have seen some of the luminaries of the industry making those comments. And I'm very sad about the comments, by the way, right? The reason is that we are trying to break down a very complicated issue into a very single number. Okay. It's almost as if you're trying to answer what is the right age to get married. Okay. There is no right age, right?
There is no
It's,
writing.
it all depends on person's personal preferences, circumstances, career path, right? There are hazard factors that really determine what age you get married, right? And if somebody says, oh no, 25 is the right age to get married or 30 is the right age to get married, they are just uh, I think that's um, I don't want to use it as strong, but that's just a stupid statement, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think similarly, I think 70-hour work week, right, is a stupid debate that we are having in the corporate India. Okay. I think it all depends on the circumstances of the people, right? And the career path that you have, ambitions you have, family responsibilities you have, and how do
Yeah.
you want to prioritize that? We as founders, as companies, we have the responsibility that we create space for people who are in different life stages and life preferences. Okay. So I have to ensure that the people who are really ambitious, who have all the energy, who really want to go and who really want to say, and I have people in my company who came back to me and say, I want to launch this country. And I'm like, but you have so much work. I work Saturdays and Sunday, I launch this country, but I need XYZ. Okay, you have, as a founder, you have to capitalize that energy, right?
Yes.
And give space to that energy
Yeah.
and be able to fulfill other people's ambition,
Yeah.
right? That's a bare minimum that is required of a founder. I also have people who said, like, okay, I need a 6 months work from home because look, my wife has got a new job in Gurgaon and I can't commute every day. We'll figure it out, but 6 months I need to work from home. And I have to create space for those people as well, right?
Mm.
So I think we as founders or as corporate India, we get very bogged down by a single number,
Yeah.
okay, to a very, very nuanced situation. Okay. The best we could do is create space for everyone in different preferences and the lifestyles and personal ambitions people have. Okay. I don't mind people working 70 hours. I don't mind people working 30 hours as well. It all depends on what you want to achieve.
True, and I think the easier would be just to say that it becomes like a lifestyle, right? Like if
Amen.
somebody walked in and he or she was mentioning that they want to take up additional amount of responsibility because they're really enjoying the job that they're doing and they see a potential in it, and then you are there to nurture that ability. So, right?
Absolutely. And trust me, Ekta, right? It takes a lot of time and effort to take things to the finish line,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And that's where we can't bound ourselves, right? So there are projects that we started and we never knew how complex would it go. Okay.
Hmm.
Just putting up a factory, right? We thought, okay, we have a blueprint for the factory. There is a contractor, there's a man, this guy will put up the machine. But when we put up the factory, okay, there was no Saturday and Sunday. I was standing out there, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think in execution, there are so many things that you cannot foresee in the planning stage that when you put your thoughts into execution and take it to the finish line, it's unbelievable amount of effort,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And it does put a lot of pressure on the people who are executing on that. And there is no escaping 70, 80 hours work week there.
Hmm.
However, that should not be by design. Like, that's an exception to the rule. Okay, that cannot be the new normal, right? So I think
Right.
that's where we have to be very careful that it doesn't become the culture of the company to try to push people hard for no reason. But there
Hmm.
are times where we all have to like roll up our sleeves and get down to the business, and that's fine too, right?
Yeah.
So no formula per se.
Got it. All right. We're going to touch upon the segment of founder reality and personal philosophy because I think we've heard everything about how you've created the company, the kind of people, the kind of psyche, but let's understand a little bit of you. So tell us, what did corporate leadership prepare you for, and what did it completely fail to teach you about entrepreneurship?
So I think corporate leadership, and I always recommend people to do a job for a few years before you actually walk into entrepreneurship, right? Having said that, there are very successful entrepreneurs who dropped out of the college and built companies, so not taking anything away from that. But I think what corporate life prepared me for is be very structured, be able to learn from some of the best in class people that I worked with, be
Mhm.
able to operate at scale, right?
Mhm.
Be able to create vision for the products that can achieve a global can become a global benchmark, right? All of these things, like, you can absolutely learn from the corporate life, and it's very valuable skill set that you gather from the corporate life, right? What it doesn't prepare you for is empathy. Corporate
Hmm.
doesn't have empathy. Uncertainty, right? It doesn't prepare you for uncertainty. It doesn't prepare you for rolling up your sleeve for everything. So when I was a finance guy, I was a finance guy. When I
Yeah.
became a business development guy, I became a business development guy. When I was a supply chain guy, I became a supply chain guy, right? In corporate life. When you're a founder, you are
You're
the sweeper.
everything.
You are the sweeper, you are the finance guy, you are the guy who's putting up a factory plan, you're also making presentation to the investors, right? So I think corporate life doesn't give you like, that exposure of wearing multiple hats every day.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in corporate life, in different roles, you can have multiple hats, right? You
Mhm.
can go from finance to business development to marketing to supply chain, right? And you wear that hat. But wearing five hats in a day is something that corporate life doesn't prepare you for.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are valuable skill sets that you can take away from corporate life, and I say they're valuable, right? But there are things that only entrepreneurship can teach you. And the biggest part is empathy and uncertainty,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And the later part is essentially like, can you wear multiple hats and be comfortable with that?
Great. Okay, tell us, at this stage of scale, what keeps you awake at night? Is it growth, impact? or responsibility? I think I have an answer, but let me see what you say.
I think all three, right? You can't take one away from the other, right? So I think growth drives impact and sustainability, right? So essentially, right? So it's not like when I
You pick and choose, it's all three together because
it's all
that's
three
how
together
it
because
is.
one leads to the other, right? So think
Yeah.
about this. If you're not creating impact, that will basically impact your growth as well as impact your responsibility. If you're not
Yeah.
taking responsibility, that will impact the other two. So I think there's a good Venn diagram that you can draw between the three of them and
Yeah.
say, look, there are prioritization where growth take priorities over everything else, where impact take priority over everything else, right? Right. But I think one cannot be ignored over the other. So it's all
They're
three.
all intertwined in a way, right?
Very, very intertwined,
Yeah.
you can't fulfill your mission if you can't not growing, right? So essentially, and win the trust of your shareholders and communities, right? So
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting question. If EcoSoul were no longer measured by revenue, what would success look like to you?
Oh, that's a good one. Never thought about it that way. But if EcoSoul is not measured by revenue, right? We will measure ourselves by the impact, right? And I know, just by the function of our products, we do create an environmental impact. Okay. But I think there's a very important metric that we actually track within the company, which is the social impact, right? I was one of the speakers in Bangalore Tech Summit last year, and I said, look, when the IT revolution happened in the country, right? Who really benefited, right? It is the Mumbais and the Delhis and the Bangalores and the Hyderabad's and the Chennai's of the world that really benefited. And who else benefited is the computer science graduate, the engineers, the IITs, the NITs, the IIMs, right? They really benefited from the IT and the service revolution of the country. What I'm seeing very, very clearly, even the sustainability revolution is happening in the country. Who is really benefiting? It's not the Bombays and the Delhis. It's the Tumkurs and the Muzaffarnagar and the Shin and the Shimoga and Chhattisgarh of the country. This is where the employment now, sustainability has the potential to take employment to those places that did not benefit from the IT revolution. 60% of my labor force is 12th pass. So you're really creating empowerment for people who really were skipped during the first revolution that our country saw, right? And I think that's where I really love our mission of sustainability, that we are not only creating an environmental impact, but the social impact that we are creating is amazing. You have to just go to those factories and see the lives that we have changed, okay, through the mission of sustainability.
All right, perfect. Tell us, what do founders get wrong about giving back, especially when working with rural and underrepresented communities?
Ah, I think the Messiah mentality,
Hmm.
okay, about of giving back. Oh, gonna give away 5% of my wealth or something like that. Okay. So
Hmm.
I think giving back is not it's partly charity, right? Charity is not a bad thing, by the way. Absolutely giving back is partly charity. But I think a lot of giving back, especially for a young aspirational India, is empowerment more than charity, right?
Hmm.
So I think if you start empowering your community, if you start giving dual employment, for example, if the women who did not have employment now have employment, now they have disposable income, they can now afford to send their kids to school rather than be able to help them in their household, small manufacturing setup, right? That empowerment will create the next, I would say the wave of, empowered Indians, right? Who will be able to drive our growth to the next level. We won't become I think, a 15 trillion or $30 trillion economy without uplifting everyone in the ecosystem. It can't be a Bombay Delhi driven growth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you can imagine how old I am by I'm still saying Bombay, right? So it was Bombay back then, right? But the question again is very, very important for every founder, right? Given where we are in terms of the country's life cycle, charity is important, but empowerment is 10x more important than charity. Get them to create employment for themselves,
So perfectly answered. Okay, we're at the end of this episode, and I would like to ask you, what are
right?
you the most unapologetic about in how you lead today, even if things slow down?
So I am extremely unapologetic about the mission that we are on. Okay. So I I would really say that, the foundation that we have built for this company, right? It was built after a long years and years worth of journey of building trust with our retailers, trust with our customers, trust with the people who work with us, right? And I will not compromise anything on that trust. Okay, whether it leads to better growth, it doesn't lead to better growth, right? A product that we feel is not up to the quality, we'll recall the whole product. I like last year, I remember we completely threw away 2 containers worth of product because I didn't feel good about the product, right? So I think this is where we are absolutely uncompromising, and my leadership style is very unapologetic about the commitments we make to our customers and communities, right? And I will never go back on that. So
Hmm.
anybody who's uncomfortable living in high commitment scenarios, probably not a good fit to work with me, right? So essentially, I think very, very unapologetic about that.
All right, perfect. Rahul, this was fantastic. Thank you once again for giving your time and attention and sharing those incredible insights. A lot of those points, which I'm sure a lot of people do not even know. So I'm really glad we touched upon a lot of topics which made a lot of sense. Now, I'm going to ask you, what do you think about the conversation and the time you've spent with us?
No, it was great, right? And hopefully, right, every question that you ask, by the way, like, this is one of the very rare moments where people ask me these set of questions, because people want to know about funding and people want to know who's on your cap table, right? How big is your company, like, all of that, right? And I'm not saying they are not good metrics to track, right?
Mhm.
But I don't think that are the true measures of, I'll say, impact and commitment and, like, success of a business,
Yeah.
right? A business is all about the journey, and a business is all about uh, the vision that you work with, right? So I think a lot of your questions really touched upon that part of the journey, right? And I really appreciate those questions. It was a fantastic conversation that we had here, and I really felt really good about some of the questions that you asked and be able to hear my story, right? And I'd always say that, Rihanna, it's my story, so I'll always enjoy telling it. Okay. But this conversation literally felt like I was talking to a friend and not really someone who's trying to interview me. So I think thank you so much for making me comfortable and had a fantastic conversation.
Thank you, Rahul. On that note, I'm going to close this episode. For everyone who's listening, some stories don't fit into pitch decks. They live in decisions made quietly, without applause, without certainty. What stood out today wasn't just scale or success, it was restraint, it was responsibility, it was the courage to build a business that answers to people who may not even know your name, but live with the impact of your choices. Leadership, when done honestly, isn't about legacy, it's about stewardship. This was a conversation about choosing the harder path and walking with intent. This is Unapologetic Me, and this conversation with Dr. Rahul Singh now belongs to you. I'm your host, Ekta, and I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, stay unapologetic.